Hey, it's Jenna here from Publicifi, and welcome to the very first video of 2017. Today I have a very special guest on the show, Ari Hearst from aristake.com, and he's here to talk about record labels and if they're really that necessary in 2017. Ari just released a new book called How to Make It in the New Music Business, which I personally love because it covers everything you can possibly imagine. I wanted to talk to Ari about record labels specifically because the points he made in the book I really agree with, and I want you guys to hear as well. Without further ado, here's the chat I had with Ari. So today on Publicifi, I'd like to welcome my very first guest, Ari Hearst. He's the writer of aristake.com, which is a music biz advice website. How long have you been running the website for?
Just over 4 years now.
Oh, awesome. And you just came out with a book about a week ago, 2 weeks ago?
Yeah, about 2 weeks ago, yeah.
It's busy in promo time. And the book is called How to Make It in the New Music Business, and it covers pretty much everything, like even things you wouldn't think you need to know about, how to find parking at a venue with your tour van. These little tips as well. And what I really love about this book is that after every chapter, you have a list of tips that you can apply right away. So everything is actionable. You'll know exactly what to do to become a better band or musician. Today, I wanted to talk to Ari about record labels because I really like the points he made about this in his book. I agreed with everything he said, and he thinks that you don't really need a record label in 2017, or you have the option not to sign with one, whereas in the traditional industry, it was required to get that access. So, Ari, what advice would you give to a musician now who still thinks that they do need to get signed to be successful?
Sure. Well, we're living in the most exciting time to be a musician in the history of the music business. Traditionally and historically, there were all these gatekeepers that you needed to get through. You needed their permission to become a successful professional full-time musician. And you don't need their permission anymore. You can exist, you can operate a successful full-time independent music career without a label, without a traditional publishing company, without a manager, without an agent. And but specifically with record labels, that's one of the biggest misconceptions that musicians have because, we look at me, I'm a musician, and this is how I looked at it when I started my music career about 10 years ago. We look at our favorite artists and they're all signed to record labels. And like, oh, well, I want to be like them, so they're signed to a label, so I need to get signed to a label. And I get that reasoning because the new music business is so new, as in, all of these new technologies that are enabling artists like me and thousands of others around the country to have a successful music career on their own without the help of a label or anything, because those technologies and tools are so new. There really aren't as many famous examples that young artists look to and like, oh, I want to do that. But they're starting to happen and become popular every day. I mean, Chance the Rapper is one of the biggest ones. He's got seven Grammy nominations this year, and he's totally independent, self-released, and Macklemore obviously is a big one, Ingrid Michaelson. I mean, there's countless examples right now that have popped up in the last 5 years or so, and there's going to be more. But here's the thing with record labels. You don't have to take my word for it. Take the president of one of the most, I would say probably one of the biggest record labels in the world, Universal Republic, and Avery Littman. And when he was asked, how do you get a record deal? He replied, don't try to get signed. Try to become popular first. Because here's the thing. Labels these days, the major record labels, they aren't interested in developing talent from the ground up. Not like it was in the 80s, 90s, and even before that, where they saw a band in a local bar and like, oh man, these guys are stars, and let's take them from the local market and turn them into superstars. They had the resources and effort and energy to do that back then. They don't do that anymore now. It's all about who's going to be a star tomorrow. And they don't have the time or the resources or the people to take a baby band and put in all the effort and money that it takes to take someone from here to here. They want to take someone from here to here, not here to here. So if you're right here, if you're just playing the local market, or if you just have a few thousand followers on your social media accounts, or you're only bringing a couple hundred people or something like that to your shows, even if you have hundreds of thousands of plays online, that's still really not at the point where you need to be at to even get a look from labels. And the thing is you need to be actually making a serious living on your own until when labels are going to start knocking and saying, hey, now we want to work with you. So that's the thing. You want to build your career on your own without thinking about getting signed. Your goal should be to become a full-time musician, not to get signed. Getting signed is not a stamp of success. Let me say that again. Getting signed is not a mark of success. It is a little victory, and you're going to have a lot of little victories here, and it's validation. I get it. It's validation from people who have lots of money and connections. That's cool. But maybe it's like 2 people. So you convince 2 people that you're awesome. That's great, but why not convince 100,000 people first that you're awesome? And then because here's the thing. Even if you create a brilliant record and your uncle is best friends with the president, with Avery Littman or someone else, best friends, and takes your record and you're like, yo, listen to this. This is my nephew and he's incredible. And he listens to it. It's like, oh yeah, this is amazing. He sounds like a star. I love this album. Even if that happens, they're going to hand you a contract that is extremely unfavorable to you. It will basically screw you out of everything, your entire life, and your firstborn child. It is not something that you could really negotiate because you have no negotiating power, because they're the only record label in town that's offering you a deal. You want to get to the point where you have 7 record deals simultaneously, and then you can be like, oh no, I want this, 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 and this. And if you don't offer me that, I'm going to go over to these guys. And you can say, you have the clout to do that. That's what, one of the first indie success stories was like Death Cab for Cutie, which in the early 2000s, they built their career independently, beating the ground, playing nonstop shows. And, they got their music placed on the OC early on when the OC was starting to feature indie music, which is like the first show to ever do that. And they turned down labels year after year after year in the late 90s, early 2000s, and only when they had every label pounding down their door saying, whatever you want, we'll give you, is when they signed. And it was a smart move on their part. So that's the point you want to get to. You want to build up your career where you are an unstoppable force, and then when labels are pounding down your door, that's when you can decide, okay, is it the right move for me now? And you can look at everything and be like, you know what? We're actually doing okay without a label. We don't need that right now. Or you can say, you know what? We're right here. We're kind of plateauing, and we do want to roll the dice a little bit. We want to become superstars. Because what Avery Littman also said, president of the Universal Republic, he said, our function is to make famous. That is the function of major record labels, okay? So it's not to help you become a full-time musician. It's to make you famous. And there's a lot of luck that goes into that. And let me reveal, this is the last thing I'm going to say. Let me reveal a very startling statistic. Only less than 2% of all artists that get signed to major labels actually make enough money to recoup the cost of their advance. Meaning, over 98% of artists that get signed to major labels fail and get dropped after their first single or after their first EP. Now, let's just think about that for a second. 98% of all artists that get signed to major labels. So, you hear occasionally like, oh, your buddy's band or friend of a friend of a friend just got signed to Columbia Records. Oh my God, they're going to be a star. And then you never hear about them again. That happens 98% of the time. And so, but we never really hear about those failed stories. We only hear about the success ones, the ones on the radio, the Justin Biebers and the everything else, because those are the success stories. But 98%. So when you sign with, and everyone who signs to a major record label for the most part is pretty good. They're great, It's not that they don't have the talent. They're all talented. It's just the odds aren't in your favor. So if you want to have a successful long-term music career, don't sign to a label. If you want to roll the dice and you really want to become famous, and that's the only thing that's important to you is becoming famous, yeah, sign to a record label. But there's a lot easier ways to become famous than the music industry. You should go make a sex tape or something like
That's
that.
true, that's true. And as well, there's so many music startups now like Bandzoogle, Bandcamp, CD Baby that are making it so easy for musicians to do it themselves. Like they're making it accessible and affordable. You don't have to wait for the advance check to pay $2,000 to a web designer to make your website. You can just go to Bandzoogle or any other startup that will help you out.
And you run a crowdfunding campaign to fund your record with Kickstarter or Pledge Music or something like that.
There's so many resources popping up on the internet every day that are making it possible to do it on your own and be successful. Yeah, so
Totally.
I really like that statistic as well. People should keep that in their mind every time they just sit around waiting for the day they get signed and discovered. Thanks so much, Ari.
Totally. Hey, my pleasure. Thanks for having me.
That was awesome information. And I'll link everything down below where you can get your book and where to find Ari's take and all of your social media. So yeah, it was great advice, and I'm sure people will take away that info and start doing things their own way.
Right on.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks.
Well, there we go. I hope you enjoyed hearing what Ari had to say, and I hope that scary statistic he was talking about really hits home with you and motivates you to do things your own way, because you can do it. I'm going to link all of Ari Herstand's information in the description below so you can find out where to get his book or read more about him. I'll see you in the next video. Bye!